at the UNA's New South Wales Conference 2016. We're really excited to welcome you here. It's going to be 2 days of some pretty impressive people speaking on some really pertinent issues. I think for the future of the United Nations and Australia's role within it. I'd like to say hello, my name is Murray. A little bit of introduction to myself. My accent is from Hong Kong. My passports are from here in the UK, which makes me locationally completely confused. I'm passionate about the United Nations. I am because I work in communications, and we have the privilege of working with the UN on a number of communications campaigns. We had the privilege of working with people involved in the generation of the vote around the Sustainable Development Goals, some kind of human interaction with a campaign called My World, with the World Humanitarian Summit recently, with the Agenda for Humanity, and coming up World Humanitarian Day, of course, on the 19th of August. I'm passionate about the UN. I'm sure you are too, or else you wouldn't be here. I'm so passionate about it that I'm wearing the tie and matching Pantone color, and of course, like all of you, I'm sure, carry around a scale model of the UN building in my suit. So I'm guessing that's a prerequisite. I'm also very impressed at our school students here who have not only been in attendance today, which is amazing, thank you guys for being here, but also that you've managed to change your uniforms entirely also to match the flag. So very impressive, guys. We are on Twitter today. If you tweet, that is going to be a great thing. The hashtag is UNAA2016. If you would like, I just need 4 more followers to get above the 1,000 mark. So I'm Murray Bunton on Twitter. You can find that shameless promotion. But first things first. We're meeting here today as part of the UN Association of Australia with the New South Wales Division, and we meet on Gadigal land. We want to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We want to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and extend that to every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person here with us today. Also, to get things started today, I want to invite up the Venerable Dr. Thich Minh Tam, who is the Executive Member of the UNAA, to lead us in a non-denominational prayer for peace, which will please make him feel very well.
Thank you for the introduction. I sincerely ask you to contemplate in silence. First praise is in English, and second praise is in ancient language about 10,000 years ago. May all beings be happy. May peace prevail on earth. May all participants to the conference be filled with joy, inner peace, kindness, and wisdom. May the conference achieve the best outcomes for the future of the UN and humanity in the 21st century. And I'm going to say prayers in the ancient language about 10,000 years ago. Bhavatu sabbe mangalam, Bhavatu sabbe mangalam, Bhavatu sabbe mangalam. It means may all beings in the universe be happy and joy and together. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, to kick things off, we have an introductory set of remarks by Ken Gleeson, the President of the UNA in New South Wales. Born in Sydney in 1955, Ken served with the Australian Army for 20 years. Before retiring as a major in 1992. In that, he served as the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping Operations as an international civilian. He's served in Cambodia, Rwanda, Yugoslavia, East Timor, and Sudan, during which time he was awarded the Overseas Humanitarian Medal for his services. Retiring in 2006, he's now the academic manager for Williams Business College in North Sydney. Would you please make very well to this stage, Ken Gleeson.
Thanks very much for coming here today. Murray used the word, it was passionate, and I'm passionate about this organisation. I'm passionate about the UN, and I want to share that passion with you. The UN is probably the most complex organisation in the world. it has not an equal. You may want to compare it with NATO, but NATO is purely military. We cover all aspects of society, community, and environment. We only have one shot at this. We had a shot in the past, the League of Nations didn't work out too well. Change has to be driven by the need and the people. Bureaucracy can't drive change. I'm looking at you. Change has to come from you. I want you to do 3 things over this coming days. First of all, I want you to engage. And then engage, you discuss. I want you to learn. And then from that learning, I need for you to communicate. Engage, learn, and communicate. Get the message out there. We need to communicate to the people who are not converted about the United Nations. This leads me back to the purpose of these 2 days. Even though Murray and I may be passionate about the organisation, it has highs and it has lows. And any organisation turns into a bureaucracy and become stale. I'll get back to what I said before. Change. Is the United Nations meeting your expectations? I have an answer, but I need for you to answer that. I need for you to answer that over the next 2 days. You need to challenge us. Does the United Nations need to change? Is it fit for the 21st century? And that's what we're here to discuss. Do we need to tweak it to make it more appropriate for the changing times? One of the things I'm proudest about is what Dao Phat Vao Doi and Peter Nathan have achieved in organising this event. It has been a time-consuming and challenging operation, and they have been absolutely brilliant. And the quality of their work has stood out in the speakers that they've organised. They all are professional, highly competent and qualified people. And we're going to learn from these people important information. And they are going to challenge us in our thinking. And I want for you to learn something about what these speakers are presenting us. And take that away and talk to, not to your friends who are already converted, but we need to go that one step further and talk to people who may not know too much about the United Nations. I just want to spend a quick moment on the UNAA. We've got some events coming up here in August, and one is the World Humanitarian Day on the 17th of August. And this is a chance to stop and reflect on the humanitarian side of the United Nations and the work that we do in the field. And we need the ability to connect with people who need our help. And World Humanitarian Day is a moment when we can stop and reflect on what we've achieved, promoted, but more importantly, where we need to go to in the future. And it's just a moment to share, enjoy the United Nations, what it's doing, but also to develop the ideas of what's the next step in trying to achieve global harmony in relation to humanitarian people. There are too many humanitarian crises around the world. They're not getting fewer, they're getting worse. Something's going wrong. So over this weekend and again on the 17th of August, we'll take a moment to reflect on what we can do in regards to these situations. We've got UN Day coming up in October, and also you should actually have some membership forms. And I'd dearly love for you to consider joining the United Nations Association. We only get better if new people and new blood come into us. If it's the same people all the time, we don't develop. We need to develop, and we too need to change. So I challenge you, if you wish to become a member of the United Nations, please do. Now I'd like to thank you one and all for coming. And your key word, apart from the 3 things I've said to you, that is to engage, learn and communicate. but above all, enjoy yourself. Thanks very much.
Well, for some words of introduction, our next speaker commenced as the Executive Director of the UNAA in 2014. Prior to his seat, he sat as Vice President of the UNAA New South Wales Division for 2 years. Until 2014, Matthew has worked as a Senior Advisor for Environmental and Community Strategy at the Qantas Group. In this role, he's improved numerous airlines' performance in numerous ways. Outstanding success that ultimately won them numerous prestigious awards, including the world's top airline award for sustainability, the ATW Eco Pioneer Airline of the Year Award in 2013. Over several years at Qantas, starting via their graduate program, he also worked in other roles covering commercial strategy, finance, project management, government affairs, public relations, and marketing. If you're not intimidated enough already, Matthew has a graduate academic background in sustainability, commerce, and aviation. In 2010, he was awarded the Fellowship Scholarship at the Center for Sustainability Leadership. He's regarded as a polymath, goes without saying, with expertise in stretching from environmental sustainability, climate change, global systems, business management, aerospace engineering, renewable energy technologies, and he will be taking questions during any of the breaks on any of those topics and subjects. He holds an active commercial pilot's license. He's an enthusiastic traveler. During his university days, he worked as a ski instructor, did you know, in Australia and Japan. Would you please welcome the Executive Director of the UNAA, Matthew Monroe.
How's that for an introduction? Thank you, Murray, too generous. Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to the UNAA New South Wales Conference for 2016. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respect to their elders past, present, and future. This conference is being held at a moment of transition for the United Nations. At the end of this year, Ban Ki-moon will depart after a decade as the Secretary General, or as described in the UN Charter, the Chief Administrative Officer. Ban's legacy is built around two very important global compacts, both of which were finalised towards the end of last year: the Sustainable Development Goals and the Global Climate Change Agreement. The road to implementing their objectives will not be easy. It was a spirit of unprecedented international cooperation that enabled acceptable texts for these two agreements to be struck. But as the global population continues to rise and the world's resource base continues to remain finite, it is inevitable that as the years tick by, frustrations will continue to rise and countries will increasingly bump into each other. So this change brings us to a fork in the road. We can choose to build walls and withdraw from the world, or we can instead work to unclench fists and open our arms. We will need to replace fear with trust and teamwork. Which world would you rather live in? At a more immediate level, the most pressing peace and security challenge for the incoming Secretary General will be found in Syria, where the deadliest conflict of the 21st century is being fought. Over the past 5 years, half of the Syrian population has either been killed or displaced. Approximately 4.7 million Syrians now live in neighbouring countries, while 6.6 million remain displaced within the country's borders. The intractable conflict of Syria remains an enduring stain on the conscience of the international community. Indeed, the conflict in the wider Middle East has contributed to an unprecedented refugee crisis, with over 60 million people currently displaced worldwide. In 2016 alone, the UN has set an $8 billion target for Syrian humanitarian relief. That's almost twice the general budget of the UN. Calibrating the UN's humanitarian and political response and securing funding for the UN efforts will be an early test for the next Secretary General. For some, the next Secretary General will need to lead a fundamental refurbishment of the UN system. As Thomas Weiss has argued, it is critical to identify and elect a Secretary General who understands the flaws in the UN structure, staffing, and has knowledge, determination, and charisma to correct them. We in the UN General community understand the reforming power and opportunity of a new Secretary General when their term begins, and so look forward to the white smoke emanating from the Security Council sometime in October when they've made their choice. It is clear that the central challenge for the UN is to dispense with the blinkered short-term thinking and instead embrace strategic, sustained and longer-term global thinking. In the words of the Second Secretary-General, Dao Phat Vao Doi, never look down to test the ground before taking the next step, for only he who keeps his eye fixed on the far horizon will find the right road. Although the incoming Secretary-General will have little opportunity to address some of the broader maladies, she or he will, however, possess the power to advocate for structural management and personnel reforms. The UN system, as we know, is a labyrinth which often suffers from a lack of coordination, interagency tribalism, and overlapping jurisdictions. In behind this system, there exists no centralised financial system, meaning that some parts of the UN rely on the general budget, while other parts need to go cap in hand around the diplomatic missions in New York to seek and beg for funding. The Elders Group, a group of extremely distinguished former diplomats and world leaders, founded by Nelson Mandela and including the likes of Kofi Annan, have also called for reform, suggesting that, and I quote, "The UN needs fundamental changes to remain relevant in the 21st century," our theme for this conference. Their recommendations focus on the UN Security Council, including suggestions around a new longer-term category of membership and a veto restraint in cases of mass atrocity crimes. They also advocate for enhanced access for civil society through the use of the ARIA formula. And finally, the group called for a more independent Secretary-General, empowered by a single, non-renewable term, an idea that unfortunately has been previously roundly rejected by the permanent 5 members. A more achievable set of improvements are found in the 3 recently concluded reviews on peace operations, peace building, and women, peace and security. These reviews will light the way on the road to reform for the next Secretary-General. Now it is time in the UN's agenda to move on from the high-level reviews, the panels and the summits, and get down to the business of meaningful transformation. The question remains, will UN member states instigate and carry forward this reform, or will they resist it and fight it? Here in Australia, we can play a role championing initiatives aimed at innovation. Australia must engage with and live its values through the UN, and we at the UNAA must support this. Whilst the UN may need change, it is very clear that the UN still matters. The UN is the vital, indispensable institution of global governance. It has fulfilled its core task of preserving international law-based order for the past 70 years. There has been no World War III. The UN still matters. Firstly, the UN still matters because it is the receptacle of what John F. Kennedy described as the most generous of humanity's impulses. Those values enshrined in the UN Charter. It brings out the best in us. The spirit of humanity and cooperation to overcome adversity as we live our daily lives. Secondly, the UN matters because of its legitimacy. The UN Security Council is the law and the sole arbiter of the use of force in international politics. Member states, even those most powerful, must come to the UN forum to seek approval for their international actions. Thirdly, the UN matters because of its numerous specialised agencies. They quietly work in the background, enabling our modern globalised world to operate for our enjoyment. For instance, the International Telecommunications Union that allows the network compatibility that allows you to stand in a dusty field out the back of Burke and talk to your friend in the Swiss Alps while they're skiing via video Skype. The International Civil Aviation Organisation that creates the government backbone that facilitates safe and seamless airplane flights between nations so you can build international friendships and see the world. The Universal Postal Union, so that you can jump on the internet, online, on eBay, and order a package from anywhere in the world and have confidence that it will arrive safely in your mailbox. This is not to forget those specialised agencies that help to solve some of our worst nightmares. The World Health Organization to coordinate response to Ebola. The International Monetary Fund to help stabilise countries on the brink of economic collapse. Finally, the UN matters because it helps the world's most vulnerable. Most vulnerable people, especially in times of dire need, disaster and war. The World Food Programme for basic food and water the UNHCR for shelter, and the white tanks and blue helmets of the UN peacekeepers for protection. In conclusion, over the next 2 days you will hear from a host of experts, almost 30 in all. They will deliver talks and panels on issues from across the UN's agenda based around the theme, making the UN fit for purpose in the 21st century. I hope you will find the conference an enriching experience where you will build your networks, uncover new opportunities, and ultimately leave feeling informed, inspired and engaged regarding the work, goals and values of the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. We got our first session.